And then I said, I'm going to walk from this side of the stage to this side of the stage. And by the time I get to this point on the stage, you have to glide your note to arrive at the first note in D major that you sang. I actually have it on video here, which I can show you. This is what went on the record. That sound is that's what begins the whole adventure.
Right.
But I really wanted to find a way of building the audience choir into some kind of virtual instrument. And Native Instruments and I have been putting together this instrument. Let me see if I can pull it up right now.
This episode is being supported by Tapeit. If you currently use voice notes to record your ideas, you should try Tapeit instead.
Over the last few years, I've just become increasingly obsessed and fascinated by the idea that you can conduct an audience in harmony. And I'm a firm believer that everyone on the planet has a voice, and that every voice is different and valid. And when voices come together, beautiful stuff happens. So recently, I've been doing this thing with my audiences. It's kind of like an ever-evolving language where I'll fashion the audience into a few different parts, normally sort of 3 to 6 parts. So say there are 3 parts. I'll sort of draw lines with my fingers, with my eyes. I'll say, okay, you sing, and you sing, and you sing, as a starting point, for example. And then I point to a group and I'll lift them up or push them down. And my job is to give them a pathway where there's only one note that they would think to do, or over 50% of the audience would think to do, so that there's this mass gravitational pull, and I don't have to explain what's going on. So I'm navigating chords like this sort of diatonically. Everyone always knows more than they think they know about music. Anyone who's ever heard music has a inner structure and a sort of skeletal understanding of how harmony works, whether or not they think of themselves as that. And most people, when it comes to music, most people just need permission. They don't actually need skill. They need permission to start being involved. And so one of the beautiful things about the audience choir live is that, you've got a whole mixture of different age groups, people from all walks of life. Some people are, really pro musicians. Some people have never played an instrument in their life, but they're all singing together. And the feeling of it was so dramatic and so emotional that I really ended up fashioning a lot of this album around not just the sound of the voices, which are all on the album, but also just the feeling of it, the value of it. I think I really realized over the last couple of years that, in a sense, my voice is only as big as the voices around me are big in many aspects of my life. As a human, if you lift up the people around you and get connecting in that way, I think really great stuff happens. So I thrilled at the chance to kind of, in some ways, conduct these mass experiments and use some of the results in songs. So if I play you in verse 2, which is the Asper verse, if I play you the sound of these audience choirs, I chop them up, right? And so it's like, whoa, and there's like air around the sound, which you get from the venue's AC. You get,
yeah.
And there's such an intensity to the life in those sounds.
And how are you recording those audiences each time? Do you set up mics around the room, or do you just have a mic on stage with you, or what? No. So there are 6 mics, well, either 4 or 6 mics in the venue. If the venue's big enough, we hang mics from the ceiling, because then you get a really big sort of drastic distanced sound. But we always have the sort of the 4 core mics. So normally they're like shotgun mics on the stage, pointing towards the audience, which obviously we never feed into the PA because that would be a disaster. But we record all of that, and it's kind of just it's a big job to go through and categorize all those sounds. The rewards are amazing, and this particular example is quite choppy, but I think some of the best of it is when it's really broad and sustained and emotional, and it just feels like this crazy ocean of humanity that you get to swim around in. I've just found a folder on my machine of a bunch of my most favorite worlds, because the other thing about audience choirs, which is so, we could spend the whole 2 hours just on audience choirs, but the triadic polyphonic motion is one thing that I love, but I also love it ends up being sort of quite clustery sometimes, sort of these really dense cluster chords, and the way that I sometimes achieve these, sometimes I just sing all the notes to all 6 parts of the audience if I've got balconies, or if I sit at the piano and play a cluster chord and sing all the notes in sort of reverse order of significance, then what happens is that the note I most recently have sung is the loudest because people have more recently heard it. And so if I start with the notes that are further away from the center and I end up with the notes that are in the center, you end up with this, it's a bit like a hanging curtain of just
of gorgeousness. Like, take this for example. So volume is hand up, hand down, right? Oh, here's another. Columbus, Ohio. That first one was Sydney, Australia.
If you, like so many of our guests, use voice notes to capture your ideas, you will love Tapeit. It's the iPhone recording app designed specifically for musicians and songwriters. With Tapeit, you can record straight from your lock screen, set markers, add notes, and even include photos of settings. Plus, there's cloud sync, you can import your old voice notes, and to stay on top of it all, Tapeit has great labeling features like automatic instrument detection. And all of the above is free. If you currently use voice notes, switching to Tapeit is a no-brainer. And there's more. If you upgrade to Tapeit Pro, it uses 2 microphones on your iPhone along with gentler dynamic compression to give a much more natural sound than any of the usual apps. And we have a huge offer for you. 50% off Tapeit Pro if you upgrade now. Just go to the app and select Tape Notes in the onboarding process or click the link in the description below.
So sometimes certain notes need topping up. We'll go, ooh, let me on that one. And then it catches. It's like wildfire, you know. Here's another one. Brisbane, Australia. What a sound. Barcelona. Wow.
Do the audiences have different accents when they're singing?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Yeah, certain vowel sounds are different at certain times, but the amazing thing about, building these audience choirs into the record in all the different ways is that it sounds like one massive choir. It doesn't sound like totally different. It's not like, oh, that's just a different bunch of people from this. It sounds like one voice. And it's like this process of unearthing the reality of a group of 2,000 people, 5,000 people, however many it is, 30,000 people. There's something in that sound that's always there, but it's not in any one voice. It's in like the mass voice sound.
Yeah.
Tonally, it's so interesting.
It's the sound of humanity.
It is.
That's what you've captured.
Yeah.
That's an amazing achievement.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's an ever expanding curiosity, and I do feel very, very lucky to get to just explore it in real time and just to navigate it and see where it goes. And yeah, and as I say, just as someone who's constantly listening to the world, it's a very remarkable thing to have access to that kind of sound, and get to guide it so specifically. But so some of the best moments happen when I'm not in control and I don't know what's going to happen, and then someone will surprise me, and I think, wow, I didn't know you could do that, or you didn't know you could do that, or whatever.
And you're not playing with the sound as it happens.
No, it's total. I mean, the PA is turned off, which is why it's one of my favorite bits of the show. It's just what the room gives is what you get. And so the interesting thing over the years has been, how is it different, for example, outdoors versus indoors? It's much harder outdoors because you get twice as much sound off the ceiling as you do from the people, For example, conducting the audience at Glastonbury was a real challenge, 30,000 people, unruly crowd, outdoors in the baking hot sun in the middle of the day with other bands playing all around them. And they screamed their hearts out. It was beautiful, so moving. But, that the Brixton show that you came to was one of the total highlights of 2022. It was really a euphoric moment.
That's great that you felt that way, because it was thrilling to be part of that audience. It felt such a unique and special experience, but also just as an audio experience, it was thrilling because it's so rare now that we get to hear that kind of thing. Well, I say now. I think any time to hear so many voices in unison.
Well, totally, yeah. And the moment I hear the sound, it brings, as you say, brings the feeling back to me of being in that stage, and it feels like riding a wave or being in space or something. It's just kind of like, whoa, and I'm carried, and the audience is carried. And it's just this amazing feeling, and that's how it feels when you conduct a room as well. You can't get too many parts moving, so it's really forced me to kind of distill my intention musically and en masse and sort of figure out the best results and how to get them out of people. It often come from very, very, very simple gestures. Music inherently is very simple as a language. It's just all the axes of it we all understand intuitively. Big, small, right? Wide, narrow, many, few, loud, quiet, high, low. These are really, really simple things. If you just show them clearly, high, low, big, small, loud, quiet. It's just about finding the simplest possible gesture to express that. And that, I think, is part of what makes it fulfilling, is that I don't have to say, okay, guys, so when I do this, you go up, and when I do this, you go down, when I do this, you get louder. You just have to inherently know. And I think a lot of the kind of the learning from that process happened when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, watching my mum, Susie Collier, who's actually also on Djesse Vol.4, conducting all the orchestra on the album. Watching her conduct orchestras when I was a very young child, and use her physicality to gain results from people. The amazing thing about that process is that she's not just throwing around kind of like kind of authority and direction and timing. She's throwing around permission. She's throwing around energy. She's asking a question. She's pulling an answer. She's taking risks, and the whole process of watching her do that was, I mean, I'm sure sort of subconsciously why I ended up doing this kind of stuff, because I just can't help myself. It's like it makes sense to me to if I want the room to get louder, I know what to do. I don't have to ask anyone. I just know. And what the audience choir has done so well for me is shown me the clearest way of stating things. And so if you try something too clever with an audience, it normally they just laugh and then they stop. That, and that's happened especially in the early days when I was really pushing stuff and trying to figure it out. If I try something too crazy, they sort of laugh and then they stop, which is fine. Everyone has a good time. I think they also enjoy watching me try something, even if it doesn't work, and they enjoy trying it, even if it works. I really think there's such an important thing about not being afraid to give something a try, even if it's wildly outside your comfort zone. So a lot of my craziest ideas have been, my most ambitious ideas have been the parts I've learned the most about myself. But normally, what connects with the broadest number of people is when I've managed to distill a world of some kind down to a set of clear gestures. And sometimes that world is really, really calm and quiet and simple and focused. And sometimes that world is massive, broad, multi-layered. But I think in both scenarios, you still have to be clear with your gesture. So, there's that sort of THX sound at the beginning, which is one of my biggest inspirations of all time. I actually recorded this manually with an audience in Sydney, and the way I did it was a complete experiment. But I said, okay, Sydney, sing a D major chord. And then they sang D major chord. And I said, okay, now pick the furthest note away from the note that you just sang, the furthest note you can sing away from that note. So it was like, chaos. And then I said, I'm going to walk from this side of the stage to this side of the stage. And by the time I get to this point on the stage, you have to glide your note to arrive at the first note in D major that you sang. I actually have it on video here, which I can show you. And this is literally what happened. This is what went on the record.
Fantastic. Amazing. What a great audience. And
amazing audience. And they were up for a challenge. And that sound is that's what begins the whole adventure. I realized that the audience choir was something that not only was really important for me and something I wanted to use in my songs, but I also wanted to find a way of building the audience choir into some kind of virtual instrument. I wondered if it was possible. And I started to ask the audience hey, could you sing me a ah, and they go ah, ooh, So I got ooh, and e, 4 vowel sounds on every note across approximately 3 octave range. And Native Instruments and I have been putting together this instrument. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. So I can play chords here.